Thanks for having me back. What I'd like to address first, if that's okay with you, is what I spoke about previously. I'm just aware that I might have offended some people. So what I'd like to do is explain that I don't think that children are to blame for being bitten in as much as it was deliberate or laziness or anything like that. There's quite a famous trainer out there who practices learning through disturbance, and I guess that's my aim. I'm really passionate about all of this, and I think that learning how to protect your children by teaching them how to protect themselves is really, really important, and that's what my course aims to do. But I just think that I might have given the wrong impression that I'm sort of more for the dog, and while I am, the primary and the most important thing is keeping children safe. So I just wanted to clear that up in case I have put anyone off or gotten off on the wrong foot with anybody.
I want to talk to you firstly about a program that's out there run by some councils, which is called something along the lines of Please May I Pat and Play.
Yeah, and I applaud any councils or any organisations that are doing something to address the problems. And like I've mentioned in the past, we don't know what we don't know. And the statistics we have are only because people report dog bites. They're usually too afraid to report it if it's their own dog, because the chances are the dog will be euthanized. So anything that a council does, I think, is fabulous. The difference, though, with my program is that I'm not going to encourage pat and play, particularly with dogs that children don't know. It's quite important with dogs that they do know, though, that they learn how to approach them and what to look for, which is what my course is designed to do. But I think that sometimes children will approach an owner because they're taught you must ask, the owner first. And in essence, that's fine. But in my experience, some people don't even know their dogs very well. And personally, I know of someone, her child did do the right thing, and she did ask the owner of this rather large dog, and he said that's fine, and the dog bit my friend's little girl. The owner was horrified, quite rightly, and didn't know that his dog was likely to do that. So asking the owner's not really relevant, if you know what I mean. It's rude not to ask, but it's terribly important that the child can read the dog's body language so that when they look at that dog, they know whether the dog's inviting.
And that's what I think we will talk about. But you've got an interesting theory around the same sort of thing. You wouldn't walk up to a stranger and give a stranger a hug.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm trying to...
But what if I was to say to the owner of the child, please may I pat and play with your child?
You'd be hauled off and you'd be in prison probably by now, and there'd be a big black mark against your name. So, and you interrupted me, and now I've lost my train of thought.
You have an interesting theory about...
Oh, yes. Well, and quite rightly though, would you run up and hug a stranger in the street? Chances are you get punched in the throat. So no, no, you wouldn't do it. It's weirdly rude. It's really odd. And humans have particular rules about personal space and interaction. So do dogs. And that's all I'm trying to do, is maybe apply the same thing. I know stranger danger is a little bit outdated now, but it's kind of like that, in as much as you have no idea, if you don't know what that dog is thinking. You've got no idea about the outcome. And look, 9 times out of 10 it might be great. But my point is, the one time that it's not great can result in disfigurement, psychological problems for a child, or even for a human. And if they get bitten badly, they take a long time physically to heal, let alone all the emotional trauma that they suffer. It's horrible. It's a really horrible experience. So
I want a dog. Am I entitled to have a dog?
Oh, that leads me to a whole new thing now. Entitled? No. No. I honestly believe that owning a dog or sharing your life with a dog is a privilege. It's not your right. And it's the same for me as having children. I don't think it's your right to have a child. I think it's a privilege. And if you want to inflict yourself and your problems and your issues on a child or a dog, you need to know about them, and you need to understand why you want to do that. And with a dog, they're incredibly vulnerable, and decisions are made around them and for them all the time. And unless you get it right, this can be a long-term investment. So unless you get that right and you really understand what it is and what it means to share your life with a dog, you shouldn't get one.
So I'm a client, I come to you and I say, I want a dog. What do you ask me?
Why? Why would you like a dog?
To play, to guard me, to protect me.
And look, some of those are valid reasons, actually. I do know of people that run guard dogs and do a great job with them because they still know how dogs work. And they understand that there are particular breeds that have particular inherent and inherited characteristics. So you'll have guarding dogs. And they're very good at what they do and they enjoy it. Like Maremma sheepdogs, for example, you know, and farmers still use them, you know, and that kind of things. You know, and some people it's companionship, which is another valid reason. But I think some of the reasons, though, like I said in my earlier thing, if you get it merely to take the pressure off you to entertain your children or something, that won't work. Because kids get bored, novelties wear off, and, you know, dogs make mess.
And I guess you will sit with me and try to determine the type of dog I should have. How do you do that?
I try not to say should with my clients because ultimately it's their decision. All I can do is maybe try to guide you.
Well, let me give you an example. A good friend of mine wanted a Saint Bernard. Clearly wanted, and I think I told you that story.
You did.
Clearly wanted a Saint Bernard. What did you go through to that person to say, all right, they're the loveliest dogs in the world. You had one yourself.
I did. I had an 80-kilo Saint Bernard.
Okay.
And she was beautiful, and I loved that dog. One of the first things...
Why did you talk her out of it?
I didn't really want to talk her out of it. I wanted her to have an understanding of what it is to own a giant breed, for example. And one of the first ones is they don't live very long. You're lucky to get 8 years. They're quite a difficult dog to raise, physically speaking. They're, I don't mean raised as in lift, I mean like from a puppy. You know, their dietary requirements are huge. Not so much the quantity of food, but the quality. Our climate's not great for a giant, hairy beast. When they're hot, they tend to drink more. Drinking makes them drool. They're a member of like the Mastiff family, so they have that sort of mouth design. Yeah, they do. Every single one of them drools. They all drool. It's just their design. It's the way they are. And the drool is epic. So they also drop hair. Copious and copious amounts of hair. And it will be worse because and your friend lives in quite a hot climate, summers will be punishing on that dog. A lot of people like to own dogs that they've seen in a movie or on toilet paper commercials, for example. Shar-Peis were used as the rolly dog. Now, Shar-Peis are quite a tough little breed. You know, they have a very strong personality. They're certainly not for the mild-mannered and the weaker of the humans. So they're not an easy dog to own either. Labradors, for example. Oh, you know, I love Labradors. I had one in my life for a little while. And when I was a child, we had a Labrador. But some teenage Labradors, especially males, can be quite nasty. You know, but I mean, you know, we use them a lot. You know, they're blind dog. They're not blind, but guide dogs, I should say. The dogs for the blind. I used to do some work with Pets and Therapy years ago, which was when, you know, they used so-called failed guide dogs. They put them into another arena. And these are fabulous animals. But they also have requirements as well. Like they need to be exercised and they need to be worked. They like to work. They originally were working dogs.
And what about the romantic idea of the tradesman getting the big staffy dog or the elderly lady getting a small chihuahua or the pretty girl getting, you know, the handbag dog? Are they not the stereotype that we should be going for, or is it wrong, just wrong, to suggest that that's the sort of dog that they should have?
Yeah, the handbag dog thing is wrong. 50 Shades of wrong. Yeah. It's terrible, those poor animals. Small dogs, obviously, for older people, particularly if they're sort of physically on the weaker side, and some of them as they get older, for whatever reasons, I'm not saying they're all like that, but for some, you know, they do need a smaller dog that has maybe less of a need to be worked rather than exercised. So a small dog obviously is going to be great for them. In my business, I actually see a lot of older people with small fluffy dogs, and for a lot of them they struggle to afford the grooming. They're quite a high maintenance, Maltese Shih Tzus, for example, are a brilliant, I think they're a fabulous dog. They're a really, really great little mixed breed, but they grow a lot of hair and they need a lot of maintenance. And so for some people, and that's one of the questions that, needs to be asked. What's your budget, basically? So let's say you've chosen a breed of dog. So do you have kids would be one of the questions I ask. How willing are you to take that dog for a walk every day? Are you happy to be picking up mess in the backyard? Are you happy to clean up? There might be accidents on the carpet in the house. Are you going to shut that dog outside all the time? If one of my clients would say to me, no, it's going to have to stay outside, I would suggest to them that a dog's not the right pet for them, because like I've mentioned before, you take a highly social and socially motivated animal, a pack group animal, and then you isolate it. It will manifest behaviours simply because it's lonely, feels abandoned, it's bored. So it will escape, it will try to jump the fence, it will pull the washing off the line, it will dig holes, it will nuisance bark, simply because it doesn't understand why or how. Ostracism in a group setting is a very powerful tool, and when that happens to dogs, it's not good. They don't do well with that at all. They will actively seek out company.
Then how do you pick the right dog for the right family?
Well, really, the right dog, there's a number of right dogs. It's answering those questions that I asked before and being honest. Because, sure, you might want a dog, but does that dog want you? Does that dog need you? So can you afford... there's not just the purchase price. Like, let's go back to that St. Bernard. Let's say the purchase price of that dog is about $2,500 to $3,000 on average. The first year of a puppy's life will cost you the most. The next cost you have after that, you really should get your animal insured. Now, that only costs you about $1, $1.50 a day, but that still adds up to nearly $400 a year. You have to take that into consideration. They need to be desexed. That's not, I might not. That is a definite. You should desex your dogs, no question. They need to be vaccinated. They need a good quality diet. They're not garbage disposal. So the days of just throwing table scraps at your dog hopefully are gone. You shouldn't be doing that. But you also need flea control, heartworm prevention. You'll need to gutworm them. There's, a series of things. But once you get all that done, pat down, and that's organised, after that, the cost of owning a dog is not prohibitive. If you do everything as a preventative measure, so you give it raw bones to keep its teeth clean, you feed it a proper quality diet without any rubbish, it won't get fat, it won't get dental disease. If you exercise it and offer it the stimulation that it needs in its environment, you should all round have this wonderful, happy association. And it shouldn't have to cost you a fortune. So you might be able to afford to buy a dog, but can you afford to run that dog? It's like, you can afford to buy a BMW, can you afford to service it? Put new tyres on it.
The strongest message you want to give in this episode to people watching this around dog ownership is what?
Do you really, really, really want a dog? And if you do really, really, really want a dog, just pick right and let it be part of your family. Make arrangements so that it can be in your house. Even if it goes on a particular rug, that's where it knows and that's where it sits, or in its own bed. You should include them but ignore them, and that way then they know their place. They're inside with you, which is their pack, and they're happy and they're less likely to cause problems. And I think my dog's scratching at the door.
Then is it a good idea to get 2 dogs?
Sometimes 2 dogs is great. It's no joke.